Senator Lindsey Graham, good to have you here in person, Senator. You just voted for a short-term deal that doesn't include a cent for Ukraine nor for the U.S. border.
Right.
How did you swallow that?
We had to keep the government open. We got 45 days to fix both problems. I listened to Kevin closely. There will come out of the Senate soon a bill that will have three legs to it. Disaster funding, we need more, not less. Robust funding for Ukraine to get them through the next fighting season, not $24 billion, and a major effort to secure our border. I believe there's bipartisan support in the Senate to do both, and it will go to the House hopefully in the next 30 days.
What the Speaker was talking about, though, was a bill, H.R. 2, regarding the border that Senate Democrats will never get on board.
There will
so
be
what
a
are you talking about?
Right. So we got to fix asylum. We need border security agent increases. We need more detention beds. I think there's Democratic support for major border security reform, but we have to attach it to Ukraine. To those who say we need to fix our border, you're right. To those who say we need to help Ukraine, you're right. To those who say we need to do the border, not Ukraine, you're wrong. The vast majority of Senate Republicans would support a combination of border security, Ukraine funding, and disaster aid.
Well, when it comes to the House and the idea that we got to move swiftly, right?
Right.
The White House told Republican leadership that they don't have enough funding for Ukraine to make it through 45 days, and the authorities they have are insufficient.
Yeah. Well,
so how much time are you talking about needing?
You know, I've been around while I'm wearing a pin. Do you think I would leave Ukraine? I don't believe that one bit. This same White House says we don't need F-16s, we don't need HIMARS, we don't need tanks. I've lost confidence in their evaluation of what's going on in Ukraine. We got a bunch of allies. They can help for 6 weeks. The allies have spent more money in Ukraine than we have, and when you hear otherwise, it's just not true. It's been good burden sharing, but I'm not worried about the next 6 weeks. I'm worried about next year. We will produce in the United States Senate Ukraine funding 60 or 70 billion, not 24, to get them through next year. We will have a border security measure that is strong, and we will have additional disaster aid because the nation needs it. We're going to do those three things, and I'm hoping our House colleagues will react positively to it. I think Kevin is the right guy at the right time. The only way he loses his job is if a handful of Republicans join up with the Democratic Party to fire him. That would be a disaster for the future of the Republican Party. That's not going to happen. Kevin has the overwhelming confidence of his membership. He worked to avoid a shutdown. He will help Ukraine, but he's telling everybody in the country, including me, you better send something over for the border for me to help Ukraine, and he's right to make that demand.
Understand, but you're talking about, to be clear, a supplemental bigger than $24 billion for Ukraine, and that's going to pass in 45 days.
Oh, absolutely. You know why? Because we need it. We haven't lost one soldier in the Ukraine. We spent less than 5% of our military budget. 50% of the Russian army has been destroyed by the Ukrainians. They would be at Crimea already if the administration hadn't been so slow in giving weapons.
And we dedicate a lot of time to Ukraine on this program, so we find it important. But I want to ask you, because Leader McConnell had gone into the lunch yesterday telling Senate leaders that he believed the White House when they said they were running out of funding for Ukraine, and then his deputies apparently urged him to drop it, which is how you ended up with this bill with nothing in it for Ukraine. Is he in control of the caucus?
Senator McConnell's been great in Ukraine, but he picked a formula to lose votes for Ukraine. To expect people like me and others to vote for Ukraine aid without border security is unreasonable. Mitch made a miscalculation. He's been great on Ukraine. I told him 1,000 times, the key to Ukraine funding is to deal with a broken border. 107,000 Americans have died from fentanyl poisoning, from fentanyl coming across the southern border. We haven't lost one soldier in Ukraine. So America is being invaded from a broken southern border. To my Democratic colleagues, you need to take border security seriously.
Yeah. Are you saying that Ukraine should not be a standalone? It has to be.
It will not be a standalone. When I go to South Carolina, I openly talk about helping Ukraine. If you let Putin get away with this, you have a bigger war. Well, what about our border? I promise people in South Carolina, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to help secure our border and keep the fight going in Ukraine to make sure that Putin doesn't get away with this.
Have you asked Donald Trump